Watching breaking news sometimes is like watching waves crash on a shore. It's really important to watch the waves, but you can't ignore the undercurrents that are there as well. And we have a developing story out of Georgia that's giving us a really good lesson on why it's important to watch the breaking news, but also have an understanding of the undercurrents of the story that also matter. So let me just take you to what happened in Georgia over the last 24 hours. We'll talk about really some of the breaking news, and then we'll talk about some of the context for it. So the breaking news out of Georgia is that there was a shooting on Tuesday. That shooting is one of the most significant mass killings we've seen recently. A mass killing is loosely defined where there's a shooting with 4 or more victims. And that's the case here. We have 8 victims, the majority women, the majority Asian. And it's for that reason that as the story is moving and breaking, there's an immediate inference that this crime was racially motivated because the facts are there. Over the last 24 hours, though, investigators have left more room as to why this 21-year-old shooter accused of these killings committed this crime. So there's more to the story to develop. But this is one of the reasons why the immediate reporting led to a question about whether or not the crime was racially motivated. However, there's also the background to the story as well. So let's leave the story in Georgia for a moment and talk a little bit about the context, the undercurrents of this story. I'm sure over the last year you've seen a series of different reports that have suggested a rise in crimes, hate crimes, assault, aggression against Asians in America during the pandemic. And you may say to me, well, Jenna, how much have these crimes increased? How much has this aggression increased? And the reality is that we don't have that gold standard data that I can point to on this specific topic. In fact, it's one of the big lessons over the last year for me as a journalist of just understanding the limitations of data that exist. We do have FBI data that talks a little bit about hate crimes or data overall, but you have to understand a lot of the crime data that we have in the federal level is voluntarily reported. And a lot of what we're talking about is not necessarily hate crimes as we might understand it. That's why I use the term aggression, aggressive behavior as well as assault, as well as hate crimes. But this is a story that keeps coming up. It's coming up across the country from California to New York. And it's one that we're continuing to watch that has risen to the federal level. In fact, separately, just completely separately from yesterday's events, Congress is holding a hearing tomorrow on this very topic about aggressive behavior, discrimination towards Asians in America over the last year. So this is the level that it's risen to. So that's the undercurrent. That's one of the other stories that we're watching. How these two stories intersect is a broader question. When we're watching breaking news, one of the things that you do learn as a journalist is that the initial reports are often wrong. But one of the lessons I've also learned over my years in reporting is that often the rush to judgment is countered with a rush away from that judgment. And you know that life is nuanced, right? There can be many different reasons for someone to commit a crime. It doesn't have to be just one, although it's easier when we're reporting one. And it's easier for us to organize one in our minds. But a lot of the times, a lot of the stories we're reporting on are very, very nuanced. So we have to leave room for that. So what we're watching and what you're going to see on smarternews.com shortly is some of the basics of this story out of Georgia. Significant for the number of people killed, the violence of the crime, and the fact that it's developing, that we need to gather more information to understand it fully. Also in our report, though, we're going to talk about the undercurrent. What also is the backdrop, the context for why there would be a rush to judgment, not only because of the facts of the case, but because of this other story that we're watching. And so we want to honor both of these stories as we're continuing to report on them. And that's one of the things that hopefully will make Smarter News different. Quick, concise, nonpartisan, stick to the facts, recognize not only the immediate facts in front of us that we want to report to you, but also the broader context behind it. So just wanted to jump on and give you a little bit of that as we're getting our reporting up and going. In fact, the story is being copy edited right now. So hopefully you'll see that shortly. If you have questions and comments on this topic, please let me know. But it's one of my big commitments in 2021 is to really talk to you about data collection overall. It's something pervasive, not only in the pandemic, but in a lot of different stories that we're covering culturally that matter. where we think that the data is out there that's suggesting one thing. And when we dig a little deeper, we realize how flexible the data is. And we can still use it, but we also need to honor the personal experiences that intersect with that data to really complete our reporting in a way that can be very, very productive. And so that's something I'm really looking forward to. So remember, breaking news is the crashing waves. We want to watch those, but we also have to honor the undercurrents as well. All right, guys, I'm going to get back to editing. Thanks again for all your support, and we'll have all our updates on smarternews.com. I'll talk to you soon.